We're going on to the gospel, going to start in the Gospel of Luke. This is a conversation that Jesus is having with the leaders of the Pharisaic movement. And so they, the leaders of the Pharisees, said to him, "The disciples of John the Baptist often fast and offer prayers. The disciples of the Pharisees do the same thing. But your disciples are eating and drinking." And so Jesus said to them, and this is where this whole, the first time that Jesus' discussion of new comes into play in His ministry and His teaching. "You cannot make the attendants of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is with them, can you? You don't fast at a wedding feast. But the days are going to come when the bridegroom is taken away from them." That's Jesus' reference to His own death. "Then they will fast." So there's going to be fasting going on, and that's connected to the disciples of John the Baptist and the disciples of the Pharisees. They will fast in those days. He was also telling them a parable. So now we get a kind of a snapshot of everyday life. That's what a parable is. That is then used to illustrate some sort of spiritual reality. So Jesus says, "Nobody tears a piece from a new garment and puts it on an old garment." Notice the language, new. "Otherwise, he will both tear the new," that's tearing off of one garment that's new, "he's going to do damage to the new, and the piece from the new will not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, otherwise the new wine will burst the skins, and it will be spilled out, and the skins will be ruined in the process. But new wine must be put into fresh wineskins." Now, the popular interpretation of this is that if you try to put what I am doing into some old, outmoded and decrepit container, it's going to destroy the container. So the container is in some measure bad, unhelpful, restrictive, and needs to be replaced and even destroyed. That's not where Jesus is going to go with this. What He's saying is we don't treat things that way because damage could happen to both. The new wine could be ruined, the skins would be ruined, and in the earlier statement, the garments, both new and old, are going to suffer loss or suffer damage. Watch what Jesus does in the next little part of this passage out of Luke 5. "And no one, after drinking old wine, wishes for new, because he says the old is good." And then the word "enough" that's put in the NASB is in italics because it's not in the original. It says the old is good. And so this argues against that position that what Jesus is arguing for is overthrow, is replacement. What Jesus is saying is that as God's plan develops, the next stage is not going to look exactly like the previous stage. Well, it can't. Why? Because otherwise there would be no need for a next stage. It'd be exactly the same as the previous stage. No further development, no further extension, no further clarification, no further enhancement would be possible. So, as God's plan develops, the next stage is going to look like, but somewhat different. It has to, because it is the next stage. Neither the previous stage nor the current stage should be handled in such a way that harm is done to the one or to the other. That's not appropriate in real life. That's not appropriate when we're looking at what's going on in the life and ministry of Jesus. In other words, whether it's old wineskins and new wine, or whether it's an old garment and a new garment, what Jesus is trying to argue here, and it's really clear from this verse 39, the old is good. When you've taken drink from the old wine, you don't want the new wine. That's a very positive spin on the stage that has preceded him. They could call it the Hebrew Bible or the Torah of Moses or whatever. on another level, this is also interesting because Jesus is simply applying the common sense, the life experience that we have in everyday life to how to deal with this developmental approach that God is taking to revealing Himself and redemptive history. So on this common sense and life experience level, what Jesus is saying is that if we use common sense in spiritual things like we do in our daily lives, then we should be assessing things as they are, not as we think they should be or hope they should be, but assess things as they are and then be sensitive to God's timing. There will come a time when we'll fall right in line with the Pharisees and the disciples of John the Baptist and previous practice, and my disciples will be fasting.